Good morning. We come to the end of this series on Let's All Just Get Along by looking at the disciples and their quarreling. And we turn to Luke's Gospel, the 22nd chapter, verses 24 through 30, as we look at this. An argument broke out among the disciples over which one of them should be regarded as the greatest. But Jesus said to them, "The king of the Gentiles rule over their subjects, and those in authority over them are called friends of the people. But that's not the way it will be with you. Instead, the greatest among you must become like a person of lower status, and the leader like a servant. So which one is greater, the one who is seated at the table or the one who serves at the table? Isn't it the one who is seated at the table? But I am among you as one who serves. You are the ones who have continued with me in my trials, and I confer royal power on you just as my Father granted royal power to me. Thus you will eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and you will sit on thrones overseeing the 12 tribes of Israel." Now, first off, this account occurs in all three of the synoptic gospels. There are two other accounts of the disciples and their quarreling that are a little bit more personal. In one, James and John come to Jesus and they say, "Master, we want you to do something for me." You know, like a child trying to get the parent to say something that they'll agree to something without knowing what it is. And as a result, the other disciples get upset that James and John are seeking the places of honor to sit beside Jesus. In the other account, it's the same story, except that it's James and John's mother, who is Jesus' aunt. At least that's what people speculate, that she was Mary's sister, and so Jesus was a cousin to James and John, and that she's coming to him as family and asking for a favor for her sons, James and John. And the result is the same, that the other disciples get upset and there's quarreling among them. But in this instance, the setting is the Last Supper. They're getting ready to partake of that Last Supper in the upper room. And in Jewish tradition, this table was set up in a square, equal on all sides. The host was set in the center of one side. And then to the right would be the person of the highest status of the guest. To the left would be the next one. And then back to the right would be the next in the pecking order. And they go all the way around the table. And thus, the ones who would be sitting directly opposite Jesus, the host at the table, would be those of the least, would be sitting there. Now, the disciples have heard Jesus talk about his kingdom, but more importantly, they recognize the pecking order that is sitting at this table. And so they want those seats of honor. They want that seat on the right and the left of Jesus, and that's what they're quarreling about. And Jesus comes into the midst of them, and he tells them that they've got it all wrong. First off, he agrees with them that these two seats are the seats of honor, and that in the normal course of things, people would seek them out, and it would be an honor to be set at one of those seats. But he tells them, "Look at what I have done. Look at how I have been among you. I've been serving you." And in fact, in John's account of this Last Supper, Jesus, as they come in, has removed his outer robe and he's washing their feet. Truly a servant's job to his disciples as they come in. And he tells them two things about seeking honor. In the older translations, he says you must become like the youngest among you. In the Common English that I read this morning, it is of lower status. Well, you couldn't get much lower status than the youngest person there. Age definitely had its privileges among the culture of this time. The older having the more honored positions, and the very youngest having the lowest position of the lowest. The only person lower than that youngest person was the servant. And Jesus goes right on to say that not only that, but you must accept the role of a servant. And then he drives the point home by saying, look at what I have done. I've been among you. Have I not been serving you? So you should do likewise. And he's making this point that we should be serving one another. And as I reflect on my life, my whole working career, almost my whole working career, has been one of service. I spent 32 years working for Xerox as a customer service rep, fixing broken Xerox machines and dealing with customers to serve them. As a pastor, as I continued on after leaving Xerox and served as a pastor to churches around in the area, it was one of service. Now, I'm not saying this to hold myself up. I'm just saying that we're called to follow Christ, and Christ was one who served those around him to enter into it. And something that somebody told me years ago, that as a pastor, that people will not remember anything that you did specifically. What they will remember is how you made them feel. And in serving people, it is how we make them feel that they remember. And that gives us our status, our honor in the kingdom is what we get in return for how we have served other people. At least that's my take on this. And then Jesus closes out this passage by telling them that there is a kingdom to come, and you are going to sit in those places of honor at the table in my kingdom, and you will rule over those that will come and be like the lowest. So there will come a time when you will have that honor. So I found this summary of this passage in a couple bullet points, and I wanted to leave you with that true greatness is in service. The danger is in the pride that we take about who we are or who we perceive we are. And that God's grace, that through the God's grace, Jesus promises the disciples roles in his future kingdom, despite their shortcomings. The table, as Jesus sets it, is a reversal of status, that the least become the first. And not to forget, the table that they're talking about is the Lord's Supper. And so that we will be observing communion this Sunday as we reflect on what Pastor Don interprets for this. Let us not forget that the Scripture comes from dispute that was at the table, and let us come with reverence, humility, and sincerity as we come to remember that Jesus gave his body and his life for us. So may God's blessings be upon you as we continue on or conclude this series. Our next series will be our Hymn of Grateful Praise, another short series leading up to Christ the King Sunday right before Thanksgiving. And before you know it, we're into the Advent season and rushing down to the end of the year. So again, may God's blessings be upon you.